Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reality Realness with three S's. I'm your host, Chantele Francis, here with my amazing race partner, Jonathan. How are you doing today, Jonathan? And how do you think overall for the premiere of season 35 of The Amazing Race?
I am very well. I loved it. I think that, it feels right. It feels like we're back. We have our amazing race that we love. And I was really excited to watch it and I wasn't disappointed. So I had a good time.
I had a good time as well. And I was thinking because like I one of my dreams is to experience a reality show, a competitive reality show, because A, I love them. B, I talk about them all the time. So I want to see whether or not like me talking a big game I can actually do well. And I want to win that cash. But like the Amazing Race, I think is the one that I would like to be on the most. It's the most freaking fun. And I'm just so disappointed in the Canadian version that it doesn't give me this.
Well,
Like, go
we
ahead.
had a 14-hour flight in this one to experience a completely different culture from like the American culture. And we don't get that in Canada, right? Like they just explored Canada and it's all essentially Canadian culture, is all you get, really. There's different aspects of that, but I mean, the Amazing Race, you really feel like, oh, you're here now, and it's like, look at these huge things that you would never see before. This like, it's really being able to appreciate other cultures and lands and countries, and
Smells, vibes, energy, like it's so good. And like one thing that really showed the difference to me with the Canadian version is just seeing the street signs. I'm like, that's like if it's not in a letter that you recognize, that's challenging to be able to navigate when you don't recognize the signage. And I was like that's an element that makes it so challenging but so interesting and so fun and dynamic. And so I was really in on like The Amazing Race is probably the best competitive reality show because it really gives you everything. It's so good.
and you know, eh, with the Amazing Race as well. Maybe not so much in the Canadian one that we just saw, but the American one, I just feel like it's unpredictable. Like you could have teams that you don't think are going to do well, and they do really well. It's not, cut and dry or like Big Brother right now. Certain people aren't going to win a lot of certain comps and things like that. With Amazing Race, you really could have anyone take the lead at any point. And that's something about the show at its core that I like the most because it doesn't matter if you're out of shape. It doesn't matter I mean, these are all things that could hurt you and help you, but ultimately, it could be, you don't know where you're going, you get lost, you take the wrong exit.
And you're
Uh,
done.
exactly. So,
So we have some friends joining us here. Sophie says, hi, the awesome duo is back together again. And this premiere gave you old school Amazing Race vibes like before COVID. Yeah, it did. It didn't like watching it. I didn't feel like COVID happened. It felt normal. It felt nothing had changed. And like, I enjoyed that.
I was fully expecting them to wear masks at the airport because I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, gosh, if you catch something, because this is several weeks, and you get really sick, like in the middle of it, I'm like, what would happen? But I think we saw one team as they were running in, one of them was wearing a mask and then never again. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But yeah, it definitely felt like 3, 4 years ago, Amazing Race, and it was nice just to have that kind of freedom as a viewer, just to like
Yes.
it's
Enjoy it.
yeah.
Just enjoy it.
And I kind of feel bad for the teams that like have been on it recently that necessarily didn't get this because this is like what I would want to be on. You know what I mean?
100%. Hi, Ben. Ben says, hi, girly pops. Sandy is here. I remember Tarkanda went all the way to Indonesia, but only do one leg there. I don't even remember that. But yeah, I remember there was a season where we went away for like 3 episodes and then came back to Canada. And I'm just like, increase the budget. Like out of all the shows, I think The Amazing Race should be the one where you actually go all out. If you're going to be chintzy and cheap on Big Brother or whatever, fine, but like, I don't know, make The Amazing Race amazing and maybe you'd get more viewers.
Well, and it's also just very choppy. I don't want to trash the Canadian one altogether, but
I still watch it.
yeah, I still watch it, but it's just so unclear, and I don't even like the editing, to be honest with you. And the American one, I'm just like, this is how you do it. This is how it's done. Like just the structure of it, how they explain everything. Even like with this new season, it's again we're going with no non-elimination legs, and there are forced, I don't know what they're calling them, but mandatory um, uh,
U-turn.
returns and whatnot. Well, I'm like, ooh, I like that. I feel like when the Canadian version one adds stuff, it's messy, it's sloppy, and I hate it. But like the American one, I'm like, okay, I can be behind this. So I'm interested in seeing this happen.
So Ben says there was nothing special about this episode, and that's why I loved it. It's simple and felt classic. I loved it. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty good episode. Like, I thought it had everything. It had travel. It had like
Well,
people for the top going to the bottom. It had heights. It had unscramble. Like, I think it was a pretty well-rounded episode, I would say.
people that we thought were going to do great were near the back. And then, like you said, like one of my picks, they were top half, and then that equalizer, which we'll get to, or that unscramble, which really kind of just changed everything for that episode. So
Sandy's saying hello to us. Hello, hello. Yes, you got a live. Yay. I'm not sure when we'll be doing this moving forward. Wednesday was a busy day because I was at Bryson Wen's event here in Toronto. And this Wednesday coming, I'll be in New York. So it might be this time again next week, and then we might figure out something different for the coming weeks. But we start this season at the Hollywood sign. Is it the most famous sign in the world? And have you been there?
so you can't. They must have gotten special permission, right? Like you
I
can't
think
go right
so.
up to it
Or
like
there might be tours that allow you to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. So when was there, I saw it from slightly afar. But yeah, I would agree with that. I think it is probably one of the most recognizable. How many movies, how many,
Even
uh,
The Bachelorette this season went to the Hollywood sign. They had a date there.
yeah.
So it's
So
for the 100-year anniversary of the sign, I believe.
and I mean,
The girl's here, Victoria. Hi, Victoria.
I've read books that have based it on people going to you know what I mean? It's just, and like, what other sign have I read? But so as a sign in itself, yeah, it's probably the most recognizable or one of. I liked it.
I like to be in the starting line. We do meet the racers, and I did one thing I did notice because it's a 90-minute seasons this year that they spent more time at the starting line talking to more teams. So there was a little bit of pacing issue that I just needed to get used to. That I think I will as the season goes on. But sometimes I'm like, oh, we're gonna hear from this. Oh, we're hearing from him too. Oh, we're hearing from him too. Like we're heard from like 5 different teams, and usually we might hear one and a half. And so I did notice that a little bit, spending a little bit more time, which is fine. I just got to get used to it because I'm like, hey, let's go. Next scene, next shot.
Yeah, I
So
was okay with it, and usually I don't like anything lingering, but I feel like it allowed us to not know who was going to do better or worse necessarily, because I feel like they spent equal time with everyone. So
sorry, there's a little something funny going on in the chat. Ben says, I wonder when Tori Deal is going to try and get on this show. And then Sandy says, please do not mention blank in this chat. I agree with Sandy. Sorry, Ben. So there's going to be, as you mentioned, no non-elimination legs. There is going to be an express pass where you can skip a challenge, and then a mandatory vote to slow down another team with that U-turn. So all these I'm fine with. It doesn't ruin the game or the episode. I think it just actually like brings it up a little bit. The mandatory vote. Do you think they're going to show who everybody votes for?
well, yeah, I feel like they would, and I feel like it's almost like they knew what was happening in the Canadian version too, because we had a U-turn that in the Canadian version this past season that everyone was too nice. No one was like going to use, and I'm like, oh, I hate this. And I said out loud at the time, I'm like, I wish they were like made like they had to. And so this season, with what you're mentioning, I was like, oh, it's like they knew that like you know, they not that any I feel like most people at least do it once, but, yeah, I love all the changes. I love all the changes, and I hope they show all the votes and everything else, so, yeah.
Or like maybe you vote in secret, but then the person that gets YouTube gets to see, or U-turn gets to see all the votes.
Yeah.
Because it would be easy to do a pylon if the first person gets there, chooses one particular team, and then you see who the first person chose, and so just following suit. No, the accountability will kind of fall apart, and it will be mostly blamed on the first team that got to the U-turn. But if it's all hidden, then people's true motives might come through, or there's going to be a little bit more strategy as to like, ooh, this person will probably go home. Let's choose them, or this person won't get mad at me if I choose them. You know what I mean? So that, I think it should be
And
blind and
and
maybe
that
revealed.
coupled with the fact that there's no non-elimination legs, like, I wonder if it's ever come into consideration before where people, "We're supposed to be working with this team. I can't, screw them around because what if it's a non-elimination leg and they're still here? They might come for us." So, that coupled with that makes it really interesting. Yeah, people might be a little bit.
Can't wait to see it. Phil mentions airports are back in play, which I know you probably really loved. I really loved because I thought it was just an easy breezy, getting to have that private charter plane taking us from destination to destination. No, I want them running in the airport. They
I mean,
haven't yet
yeah,
had to choose their own tickets and
yeah,
buy their own tickets. They had to just get to counters in an order,
yeah.
but this was the first leg, so hopefully that changes.
It was a taste of it, exactly. I was gonna say, I'm like, yes, I'm like, it's funny because I even said to myself, I'm like, "Airports are back, that's great," and then I'm like, "Wait a minute, they just had to run to one line and then to the other line if they didn't make the first plane," but you know what, I'll take it, and then we'll get to that point where
They're
they're
booking
going
it,
crazy and, like, trying to find other
getting a
flights.
travel agent to like book them a better flight. I want that. We're close. It's getting closer. All right. So the clue is going to be in their car down the hill. He says, "Good luck, travel safe, and go." And so they're going to be driving to the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles. Everyone ends up getting direction from that same one guy with the dog. So I'm assuming that the first person that went to him got him to sign the release form. And everybody's like, well, I don't want to waste more time finding someone else to sign a release form. Let's just use this guy. And so he had basically every single team coming up to him, getting directions to the Biltmore Hotel.
Yeah.
I felt bad for that guy.
Well, you see the guy at first, and then it, like, cuts to the dog after everyone's used him, and then it's like, is he just trying to walk his dog?
Well,
But
and then the siblings left there last, Alexandra and Sheridan. And they were just making sure that they got really, really, really clear and accurate directions. And I'm like,
yeah, "Can I see it again?
where's the hustle?
Look at that." Yeah, yeah, they were like, "Can I see it again? Can I just look at that?" It was I mean, you could tell I was worried for them right out of the gate as soon as I saw that because I'm like, "You don't have read your clue for sure and check as you go, but, um, you don't have time to sit there and really kinda analyze things to that degree." So, yeah.
Yeah.
And we also see that later with someone second guessing themselves, and it costs them a place in line at that one challenge, so,
Yep. So Sandy loves that they had tasks in LA before going to the airport. Me too. Like I like that it wasn't that, you just had to get to the airport and then the race is starting. It's like, no, you had to do something before you even get to the airport, which I thought was great. And so the roadblock is going to be who wants to be above it all. Between me and you, who would be doing this one?
well, I mean, if we're starting off, I'd be very open to either or, and, we're just starting the race, so I'm like, "Listen, I'd leave it up to you." I'd be like, "Do you want me to do it? You wanna do it? Whatever you feel like."
You were fine with heights, right?
I'm terrified of heights, but I still would've if I have a goal in mind and task, I would've just powered through it.
I think I would have ended up doing this one because I'd be like, okay, we know it's probably gonna be a heights thing. I'm gonna do it. I'm less scared of heights than well, I'm not scared of heights at all. So with it saying who wants to be above it all, I think that I would
Yeah, well,
save you from heights.
yeah, as long as I mean, I forget what the exact description was, like, what they told them specifically was in there, so it really depends on that. Victoria's just no. Listen, You'd be surprised at things I'm terrified at when I have a goal in mind, and, like, I would be so determined. I don't think you would know that I was scared of heights.
Would you oh, you wouldn't be like Michaela on the challenge last 2
Oh,
weeks
I
ago.
might be, like, crying and sobbing and shaking, but I would do it, and I'd do it fast. So,
Yeah, just get it done. Well, I think I probably would just be like, "Okay, don't worry, I'll just do this one." But I'm happy that you would be able to do it as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what they're going to be doing is a tightrope from one side of a building to another. It's pretty high up. I don't know if it said how high up they're going to be. And after they get across the other side, they go around the corner, and there's going to be a 3-word unscramble that is going to direct them towards their next destination. So Claire and Derek are going to be handing out the clue to the people that get the phrase correct. Were you excited to see them?
Yeah, it was nice to see them. I think it's perfect, like, kind of, you're almost like handing it off, where it's like, okay, you just won, and now here you go. Um, I I will have to say, I know we're not really there yet, but almost. But I will say I didn't even pause to figure out what it was. I was so shocked. I want to say, going into this, I was so shocked that it took people so long to figure this out, that it just blew my mind. I literally did not even pause. I looked at that thing and I said, "Oh, this okay. Let's figure out the why." And then I'm like, "That's too long of a word to figure it out with the last word. So let's go to the second one." I'm like, "Could be my, could be." I'm like, "Nah, let's go to the first one." And immediately said city, and then figured it out from there within seconds. I was just, and I'm like, is it the heights and like the adrenaline of the race and the pressure that really kind of throws people into being there for an hour trying to figure this out? I don't know, but um,
Well, Ben here is saying that they would do the heights, but would have been at the word puzzle all day.
and and just the look. I mean, anyway. I didn't even pause. I didn't think. I thought it was very easy.
Well, I remember when I was doing it, I was like, I got the city of pretty quickly, and then once I kind of like took out the other letters, I was like, oh, angels. Like, it wasn't like it wasn't hard, but maybe the way that the letters were kind of spelled out, maybe it just was rattled the brain.
Maybe it was a benefit to me to just glance at it, but, like, to me, I just took. I mean, I do these a lot. We do them in online games that we play and things like that. And yeah, I just took that Y and ran with it. And I'm like, you're in LA, it's City of Angels. Like, I didn't even watch the miniseries or whatever that came out forever ago. But I mean, I just knew it. So I didn't think it was that
That's
hard.
smart though to start with the why. Because like even in some of the like actual physical puzzles, you start with the most awkward shape first and
Yeah,
get that awkward shape into place, and then it's usually easier to put like the easier more compatible shapes together. So the Y is kind of like the awkward shape to
yeah.
figure out like, okay, what words could be with the Y? It could be like city, it could be like story, but like you didn't have those letters. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and the thing is that middle word with being at 2 letters, I looked and I was like, "Can it be it? Can it be 2? Can it be," and all those letters were there, so I was like, "I'm giving up on that," because
Yeah.
you could fit so many words in those because they were all there, all the vowels and the consonants, and I looked at the Y, I looked at the last word, and I was like, "Ooh, that's gonna be too long for me to figure out. Let's try to put the Y in that first word," and it was just boom. And so, yeah, I think I think people just panic in situations like that, and I might have done the same if I was actually there, you know?
Hmm. Well,
It's easier at home.
but
Literally.
also though, I don't know if you did these as well, but I used to get a subscription to the Toronto Star for all my days in high school. And so I would do the crossword every single day, but then it has like a word jumble or scramble, and you have to figure out like 5 different words.
Oh,
And so like I have like a system usually like where you put them in like a circle, so then you just kind of be able to see the different words. Anyways, I think that I would figure this out quickly, but like maybe if the adrenaline was there and everybody else was being like, this is so hard, maybe I would buy into that. But it didn't seem as hard as they made it seem. So the first person that gets out of this, or they're going to be going to the airport, and there's going to be 2 flights that are available. The first flight that leaves is going to have a 90-minute head start. What do you think about breaking it just into two, like a front half and a backpack?
Yeah, I feel like there also must be a reason for that as well. And they do this, I think, because let's go back to a really early season of Amazing Race, where at the end that last team, third place, was a day and a half behind the other two. But, you don't want to make sure that. So if you don't have something that's going to equalize it coming up, maybe you just want to break it up into like two different possible times, or and there's probably a lot of available flights, which is probably why they didn't give them the ability to book it themselves, because you could probably have had that wide range of individuals. That's what I was thinking. So I feel like there's always a reason why they structure it like they do. And so I was okay with it. Yeah.
So getting to the detour, it seems like Greg is first, then Joe. We see Elizabeth and Ileana needing directions. But so Joe gets the actual scramble part of it first. So they both didn't have nobody really seemed to have any problems going across the tight rope. And so Joe gets the scramble first. And we see Anna Lee get to the tightrope, and she's just zipping across. And nobody seemed to really have that big of a problem. Were you expecting maybe someone to have a bit of a freak out?
Yeah. And no, I thought they all did a great job. It was, I think even people that were struggling were moving fast. Some people were like running across it almost like a
Yeah,
top.
that was the Anna Lee girl. She's just like almost like falling sometimes. I was like, that's kind of scary. The falling.
Yeah.
Falling. So Greg, who did make it, I think he made it to the detour first, but I think Joe made it across the tightrope first. But Greg was able to solve the scramble first. So when Greg gets over to Derek and Claire, he's like, "Oh, you guys are like way taller than I would have thought." They are very tall, because I believe Claire is 5'11" and Derek is like at least her height or taller. So they're both quite tall for sure. And he is able to give them the correct response, which is
City of Angels.
City of Angels. Now, did you know that Bangkok also was named the City of Angels?
No, I did not.
And do you know what that told me to do? Is like, like how you have, like, if you're going to run the race, there's a few things that you need to know how to do. You need to know how to like drive stick, you read your clue, maybe learn the flags or the flowers. But I think learning country taglines would be useful.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like even like license plates in Toronto, they all have their own different thing. Like that would be if I was, or in Ontario, I mean. So if I was going to Amazing Race Canada, I'd probably learn like all of those.
Yeah. And I'm really bad with state mottos or whatever state, like
100%. Sunshine State, the blah 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 blah. Yeah,
like
no
knowing
idea.
that type of stuff for other countries is probably a good idea.
Should we like create like an org so we can need to learn all these things for ourselves?
So useful.
So
Yeah.
useful if we ever got on the show. So they're going to be going to Bangkok, Thailand. Have you been to Thailand?
No, I've only been to Europe
Vegas.
and North America. Yeah, that's it. You
I've never been to Bangkok either. It is on loosely on my places to go. I think I just need to go to more places in Europe first, like Spain. That's where I want to go next.
it's a long flight. I don't enjoy flights, so it's a long
Oh, right. We're going to have to sedate you.
sedate me, just knock me out entirely.
That's that's what I
I
basically.
feel like if they should offer flights like that where they just like, we're gonna put you out and you'll wake up there. I'm like, every time. I will sign up for that every time.
Like if you're bringing your animal, just be like, just sedate the animal. Sedate my
Honestly, like
friend.
when you go for like, something in the hospital and they just put you out for a couple hours, like that's what I would want.
It's like it's a procedure.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you could get a pill that will knock you out.
Oh, I've taken many a pill, and let me tell you, the brain overrides a lot of these pills.
So the siblings cannot make a decision as to who is going to do this detour. They need to figure out a system. I mean, like, there was one set of brothers, I think, that they were just doing rock, paper, scissors, something like that, because they, him, and Ha, and they're both agreeable, and neither of them have any sort of like urgency or authority or decision making skills. I was just like, hello, you're on a race. Why are you taking so long to figure out who's going to do this detour?
Yeah. And to be fair to them, I think that Alexandra it was the one pushing more than him, Sheridan. And so together they didn't they seemed very lax, but I would say out of the two, it was her that was being like, okay, let's just, but yeah, I mean, the urgency was not there. And
Zero.
it's funny because when we were talking about them last week in our draft, I think they were third on your draft, but they were high up for me as well. I would have drafted them too. So as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, I'm so glad Chantel got them.
I know. I was like, wait, did Jonathan get them in the end? That's what I was hoping. And then I looked up like, oh man, they're mine.
I
They were
almost
sixth on my actual list,
they were up there for me, and
or fifth, sixth.
I was like, I was
I thought that they would have been better.
Yeah.
I thought they would work well together. I thought that they would have had a little bit more competitive energy instead of just being
seem like
very
fit
nice.
enough. They seem really smart. So it's you're right. It's that competitive energy, that zest for like, let's go, let's power through this. That just was not there. Which you think in when you're interviewing people, you would kind of look for those who have that. But maybe they're doing a little tricky thing. They're like, you know what, we're gonna pick really smart people who are just like really easygoing. And because I don't know that whenever they spoke, I ever got that feeling from them that they were gonna. Ugh. And so I like having all different types of teams and let them surprise you on the race for sure. So yeah, it was disappointing if they were on my team, but they're not on my team, so I was like, it's okay.
Screw you. So there's a group of like racers that had made it past the tightrope part and they're kind of stuck on the unscramble, and they're working together. But Rob, which I believe is the deaf father, he's able to get it quickly, and so he goes and he's able to say this to Clara and Derek, and he's out of there. But there's 11 teams now that are all at this scramble. I think the only teams that are gone are Rob and then the brothers, so Greg and John. And so everybody's there trying. And so the early partners that got there pretty quickly, they're just like, what's happening to where's my partner? Like, why haven't they come out yet? Like, why are they still up there? I wish there was a bit of a timer. I want to know how long they were up there.
Well, at one point it did say that because I paid attention because Joe and Ian are my team and they were my first pick. And it said that they had been up there for 50 minutes at that point. And I was like, 50 minutes? It was
5-0?
5-0. And that was before all the teams even got there necessarily. And so I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, how could I be staring at this thing for 50 minutes? So, Joe and Ian are my team. And I'm like, uh-oh,
Disappointed
uh-oh,
heavily.
uh-oh. Yeah, is this a little warning of what's to come if they can't figure out these puzzles,
Yeah, like this is not a hard one. There's a lot harder puzzles that could be in their
50
future.
minutes.
Hi, Lovable Nikki. Thanks for being here. So, wait, where am I? So, yes, clear. No. Who left next? Okay, yeah, so the partners are worried that it's taking too long. Victor, Victor and Jocelyn, loving them. Their dynamic. I think that they're very cute. Victor figures it out, and he tells a few people that he figures it out. Okay,
Hated
so how
it.
do you feel about that? Yeah.
Hated it.
Had a
Hated
feeling.
it. Because he was like, oh, I'm like sixth in queue, and then I could just jump ahead. I'm like, you're sixth in a queue of no one knows the answer. So they're just like spitting out whatever as they have been, and they can spit out the wrong answers, go back and have to sit there. Unless you're making a deal with someone like, hey, I will tell you and like let's work together. That I get, that I totally get. But not telling every other team what the answer is when you're only buying yourself like, hey, if I can jump ahead, you're only buying yourself a few minutes. Like,
Well, and that's as if you don't like if you get to your destination without getting lost. Like
yeah,
you might squander your lead by telling people that might be able to overtake you in the card ride.
I like them as a team. I like how they said that marriage something, I don't know what the quote is, but marriage is like a choice, like it's like the love, the downside. I like how they're representing a couple that has chosen to be together and stay together through, their hard times. I love that story. Um, it's just, because it's not all like, roses and all those things. Marriage, I'm sure I've never been married, but it's, and so I do like them a lot. And I just thought this, and I like their personalities. I just thought this was a mistake. I thought you could do it in a different way. And if they're so forthcoming with helping other teams, we've seen that in the past, that can come and bite you in the butt.
Victoria says I probably would have told people the answer in the past, but I've been friends with Jonathan for too long. Yeah,
Bite you in the butt.
if I would, there would be no way that if I was racing with you, Jonathan, that we'd be telling anybody any answers unless we had like one team that we're working with.
Yeah, like exactly. It's just, do you think any of those people in line have loyalty to him because they told him the answer? No. I mean, no.
Well, Todd gets the answer. I think he did hear it from Victor, but he's at the back of the line with everybody just guessing. And so he says that he is going to tell everybody what the answers is if they allow him to guess first. So, what do you think of that particular play?
Oh, sorry. That's who I was talking about. I wasn't talking.
Oh, okay. You're not talking about Victor.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
so
Todd and what's their names? I'm getting used to all their names. Ashley.
right.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Victor and Jocelyn just clicked in my head that that's who you were talking about. I love them. Just go back for a second and talk about them. I um, I think they're super smart. I think they are going to do really well, which is what I was hoping. I was preparing myself for the worst, but I was hoping for that. And I think they're your team.
Did I get them in the end?
Yeah, they are. Um,
Ooh,
so
yeah.
I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of that. But yeah,
Yeah.
there was a couple people figuring it out at different times and whatnot. But yeah, Todd is the married couple, and Ashley, who I enjoy. But I thought, he made the mistake of telling all the other teams to get ahead in line. But Victor, Victor and Jocelyn, I think are going to do really well this whole team. So
I agree.
It
So
was a mistake for Todd.
say again. Oh,
It
that
was
was your hummus for Todd.
a mistake for Todd. Victor telling like Victor when he was telling people, it seemed like he was like, I want to, without saying those words, but it was like, oh, like this is I'm working with you almost. It just felt that kind of energy. It was more one-on-one basis, and so I was like, okay, yeah, and I can see him making potentially alliances with people or like let's work together for this, that kind of stuff in the future for other tasks.
So Mary thinks that Jocelyn and Victor feel like front runners. I agree, and Todd and Ashley feel like villains
I
ish.
think they're the fake villains, Todd and Ashley. I think they're like you think that they are by looking at them, but I think you're gonna be surprised. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're faux villains. I do.
Do you think there is another villain on the team that we haven't that hasn't emerged yet?
Um, they were all really likable for the most part. Yeah, I no, I don't. There wasn't anyone that I was like, oh, this is the couple I'm gonna hate. This is the couple I'm gonna want to see leave every week, like, and they don't go or any of that. I mean, there's couples that I don't necessarily, or groupings, pairings that I don't necessarily, enjoy as much. Like they're on my team, but Joel and Garrett, who are the best friends, who I forget which one was doing it, but made the mistake of, which I was talking about a little bit earlier, of knowing the answer. I think getting it from Victor, and then going back to like just see if it fits, and then like ended up being like seventh in line, even though he knew the answer, like and he should have just went to that line right away. So
Yeah, that when he went back to go check to see if it was right. Like you,
yeah,
I mean, I would have probably, especially if Victor didn't come back. Like I'd be like, if he probably got it right.
and then he like messed up his placement. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's still a couple
It's
minutes.
an error.
Yeah. But having said that, I do think it's low risk and you learn from your mistakes, and it's good to learn from your mistakes early on in the race where there's a lot of teams. It would only cost you a couple minutes, and then be like, "Oop, I'm never going to do that again." So that's probably a benefit for them. But I would say they're probably the team that I least connect with.
I don't remember their names right now.
Joel and Garrett are those best friends,
Mm.
and then
Oh, they're yours. Thank
they're
you.
mine. They're mine. They're my last pick.
You got to remind us of that.
And then yeah. But I was picking them because I'm like, we just have to try to have the whole gamut of individuals. But yeah, I mean I don't see any ones that I would be annoyed with just yet. So I don't know. I could see it being like Ashley and Todd, but I think they're going to be more likable than we think they are.
Will he though? Because it seems like, anyways, we'll get to it when if I wrote down a note about what I'm thinking of. So, did you see like the little package with the brothers, Greg and John? They're just so cute. There's little faces, how they're like sleep in the bunk bed still at their parents' house when they visit, and that like there's an older brother and like the younger brother looks up to
Being
him. Like,
contemporary now rather than like
yeah, I think they're so cute. Do you like they were both of our like high up on our picks.
yeah. I ended
They
up getting them. Which I'm grateful for, and I think they'll do really
I
well. And
think that they're a better pick than our first pick, which was Liam and Jeremy.
which I mean, if we're going to talk about overall the episode, I was just shocked that they were essentially behind the whole
Mhm.
episode was just, and for no specific reason. I mean, I guess they're younger, so maybe less experience with travel and like dealing with different situations. I don't really know, but I just was so confused as why they were always in the back.
Yeah. So yeah, Liam is 23, Jeremy is 24, and
Mhm.
then the other brothers are, where are you? 25 and 27. So yeah, a couple years through
And
4 years.
a couple years makes a difference with worldly knowledge and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I'm definitely wish that I had the other brothers at this point. I have more faith in them right now. Who knows if things are going to change though in future episodes? If things are going to be more in their wheelhouse. We were hoping that maybe they spoke another language, and so if that could come into play, if they're in, you know, if they go somewhere else. So we'll see what happens. But I was definitely surprised that those brothers didn't do as well
you
as.
grabbed them first, but they were also going to be my Liam and Jeremy were going to be my first picks as well. So
I know.
okay.
I
But
know.
I
Oh
like
my god. Mary's ready to slide on, one of the brothers' DMs. Both are so cute. Yeah, they're cute.
the eyes. I don't know what their background is. Did they go into that? What their culture is?
I don't know which brothers that we're talking about.
The Liam and Jeremy or Greg and John?
Yeah, which Mary, I was thinking that you're talking about Greg and John, but
I mean, no one's not cute. Like,
yeah.
let's.
Who do you think is the cuter brother of any of the brother couples? I don't know the difference yet.
I was gonna say, I'm like, oh, you actually. I don't know either. I couldn't tell you
Greg and
who.
John are like twins, just different ages. Um, they look too much. Who's older? I know who's older, but I don't know what their name is. Is older
Oh,
John?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, when they were younger,
Oh,
you could see
actually,
the difference with like Greg and John in those photos. But when they
okay,
got,
no, John is older, so I know who John is. I think John is cuter to me, but it could just because he's older.
yeah, I don't know who's who.
Oh, she's talking about Greg and John, and then I don't remember who's who for the other brothers.
Liam and Jeremy. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Me no no, me no no. So Todd does jump the line. He is able to give the answer. Everybody just see a montage of everybody saying the correct answer. City of Angels, City of Angels. Um, the first flight is going to be, so as people start arriving at the airport, this is where a little bit of our disappointment was that they didn't have to get their flights. They just had to get into a line in a particular order, and that's going to determine which flight they're on. Kind of Big Brother Canada sign up sheets vibes. Who cares?
I like that they didn't know how many was available though, so they were like, "Oh, I'm 5. I'm 6. I don't know if I'm gonna get on or whatnot." The only thing is that yeah, it just felt like there was something a little bit missing there. Like I feel like they could have shown like it's a longer episode. They could have shown more of I don't know, just something in the airport. I just want to see a little bit of something, but maybe there wasn't much gameplay or talk or anything to report home about. But it just felt like it was a little rushed in that moment. Like I don't know. I just want to see a little bit more.
So on the first flight, I might not have gotten the order, so I'm just going to write who I think is there. It might have been Greg and John were there first, then Rob and Corey, Jocelyn and Victor, Ashley and Todd, Milena and Andrea, Morgan and Lena were the 6 teams that got on that flight, which I was like, I was surprised by Milena and Andrea that they were at the front of the pack at this point. I was like, yes, because I wasn't necessarily super high up on their abilities beforehand, but I was happy that they're at the front of the pack for this one. And then also Morgan and Lena. I wasn't sure how well they were going to do. You were, I think I ended up picking them in the end. I picked them high, and you
Yeah.
were a little bit worried about them. And so I was happy to see them at this point at the front of the pack.
Yeah, both of those teams were literally on the bottom for me, and boy was I wrong because yeah, I was like, and happily, I was happily surprised with how well they were all doing.
So Joe and Ian Lesson. What's that am I talking about? Joe and Ian Lesson. Do
Joe
you
and Ian, they were on the second flight. They
um
started.
maybe because they got lost? They got lost and they got directions.
I don't know.
Anyways, I think that they did say when they finally got to the airport, it's like, oh, nobody's gonna be U-turning us because like we're literally at the back of the pack. Like we had to U-turn on the highway. That was at this point, right?
Yeah, that happened in the lines. Yeah.
So maybe I just wrote down something wrong. So it's gonna be a 14-hour flight. They're gonna be going over to Bangkok, Thailand. Um, and they're gonna have to see this the 230 feet statue of Buddha. And the route info says they have to go to Thailand's capital of Wak Paknam. So I thought it was interesting. Victor can understand a little bit of Thai. He speaks Laotian, which I love people knowing other languages. It's like it's so it just makes me like them even more. I just love it. I've always loved
Yeah.
multiple language speakers.
And I do understand that because, like, so I'm half Portuguese, raised in a Portuguese household. So, with my knowledge of Portuguese, I've never learned Spanish, but it's so similar that I often can, understand a lot of that as well. So, I was like, oh, yeah, it was felt very familiar in that sense, and so useful.
So useful. I wonder if like they were able to sleep on these flights because like 14 hours and then have to start running. That is challenging. Very, very
Yeah,
challenging.
I'm sure I would sleep the whole time.
So Morgan and Lena get like to Thailand's capital first, and they are going to go for the express pass. And the express pass is clear the plates. You may not get help from your partner. And it was a plate of all these fried bugs. Gross. What did you think about this?
I love a good like Fear Factor type of a challenge.
Would you do it?
I think it was that. Gosh, I mean, I would if I'm going and making that commitment to go on this race. Absolutely, I'm going to do everything with the exception of skydiving and bungee jumping. But but yeah, the spider. Well, that spider was pretty. That
Hefty.
would have been that would have been tough for me. And I can understand why the one left it to last. I think it was the younger sister, but um, yeah, but you know what? They have the right kind of don't even think about it. Like, don't let your brain process it. Just don't even think about it. You can't linger, right?
It's a hard one, but like ooh, that one. I mean, there was just so much that they had to eat. There was a lot, Jonathan. I would do it, but I would fucking be swearing. Swearing now.
Was that
I'd
like
be swearing.
like it looked like a tarantula? It was just like deep fried. It felt like it was just like perfectly preserved. And can you imagine the textures, like the little hairs on their arms, and like the textures on your tongue and the crunch?
Oh God, Jonathan.
You know it's not gonna taste good, but, like, I'm a textures person. Oh, so
Well, do you know what? I'd rather this is gross, but I'd rather hair than like slime.
like a gooey kind of. Yeah,
Like
maybe they were a gooey center. I don't know, but if you started throwing up, it would have been done for me. It would have been done for me. I couldn't.
well, I was watching it back. Like I watched that and I was like gagging when they were starting to gag. Like that, I wouldn't be able to watch you eat it. Oh God, I would do it, but like Jonathan, like
Tough. It's tough. And then like not to skip ahead, but you go from that to being like a deep Thai massage. Um,
they're such assholes. Yes, love them, Mickey. They were super lucky it was fried, not soggy and wet. If it was soggy and wet, don't even like saying the word soggy and wet makes me want to vomit. Like a soggy and wet cockroach, a soggy and wet spider. Like that's so like gross.
like chewy. It would have been chewy and
And mm, like juicy. Ew. So gross. So gross. But I have to say that I was impressed. I loved how the older sister was like, "Shut up, eat it, eat it." Like, and she's like, "Oh my," she's like, "I don't care, swallow it, let's go." And like, just like drill
okay.
sergeant her
She
getting
already,
it down.
she already ate it, and you're like, you're not gonna hold me back. We're not gonna like skip this because I've already done it. So you're doing.
Just hurry up. She's like, I'm about the spider. We go, yeah, you've been at the spider for a while. Just go, eat it. I'm like, I love this sister dynamic. Like, it is a winning dynamic for sure. I am so happy to have them on my team because I think that they are probably my biggest surprise out of this episode. Do you have a bigger surprise or anybody surprise you on this episode?
Just like disappointment wise in some of the teams that I thought, but like my happy surprise were the two teams, um the sisters and Milena and what's her team mate's name? Andra?
Andrea,
Andrea? No,
I think so.
can't even read my own writing. So um and yeah, so they were a pleasant surprise for sure. I enjoyed it. And it just felt like
Um,
so filled. Like they had so much in this episode, you know?
who had so much? Sorry, say that again.
Like, everyone, like, we just went from the LA to, like, our flights, rushing to the airport, to the figuring out the
Clue.
puzzle, and
Mhm.
now we're eating plates full of creatures.
Bugs.
Yeah, and we're not even done, like, it's yeah, tons of stuff.
So good. So good. Um, so they managed to get it down, and Andrea and Marlena are second at the clue box. I'm like, yes, ladies. They decide to not do the express pass. Sorry, I have another note about Lena. Hurry up, put it in your mouth. I'm like, this dynamic is so good. My brother. If I was on this with my brother, like, it'd be funny because I'd be like that. I'd just be like, shut up, get it down. Like, no time for talking. Like, hurry up. I don't care.
Yeah, I'd be pretty ruthless, I think, too, so not that they were, I was just saying I would be even worse, but
I would probably be worse. Victor and Jocelyn do see the girls complete it, so they kind of turn back from going to the express pass. And now they're going to be taking a river boat over to, I didn't write it down. Did you write down where they're going to?
no, no.
Taking a river boat. Have you been on a river boat?
Um, no, I went, whitewater rafting, but that's the
Oh,
extent. Yeah, that's the extent of that.
I've
But
never been whitewater rafting.
ooh, it was you can have an adventure craft, which is like a 6 person, or the other one, which is a 12 person. I went for the 6 person. I was one of only 3 people who made it to the end because it was quite intense. But I'm very comfortable with water and whatnot. Yeah,
Should we go whitewater rafting for your birthday? Or is it too
it's
cold?
a lot of fun. It's yeah, I think I did it in August of years past, but it's 6 hour, 5 6 hour drive to Ottawa, and you just go down the Ottawa River. Very good. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
Okay.
I've never gone on what they've experienced now.
So Annalie, we learn, is a tomboy. Daddy's little girl. Daddy thought she was his own little boy, and so he taught her stuff like shooting guns and all these typical maybe boy son type tasks and activities. I thought it was really cute though because she's very 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 pretty. To see that she's kind of a little bit more of a rough and tomboy girl, like I think it's cute. She recently got
Very like
married. Hmm?
Annie Oakley vibes.
Yeah. I maybe like her a little bit more because before I just kind of like, okay, like father daughter team, but no, I like this. I like her dynamic with him a little bit more, knowing that she's a little bit of a tomboy and a daddy's girl. And I think I have her on my team as well. I like my
Uh,
team, all except for maybe one.
your team, yeah. They're on your team. They're yeah. I mean, it's the. I probably don't connect with them all that well as well, just because it's the. I just feel like they go hunting, and I don't.
That fair.
I would
That's
never. So it's just
I would never go
I
hunting.
like them, but isn't she said she was Miss Texas? Yeah,
Yes, yeah. So she's pretty though, but also a tomboy. I like that. So and we saw how fast she went across that tight rope. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see her accomplish some of
power
these.
and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. All I wrote down next is, oh, Leah and Jeremy are so sweet. Why did I write that?
Well, I mean, there's probably like a cut interview with them talking about how much they, you
Oh,
know,
they're like crying and like how like
yeah,
they really, yeah, maybe
yeah.
that's why.
There was those moments for sure.
So, first to the clue box, it's a detour, 30 seconds of swordplay or spa day. Which one would we be doing, Jonathan?
I would be I would know going into it, spa day sounds too easy if they're gonna like name it spa day. I mean, it's probably gonna take longer. But I would be worried about the memorization of swordplay. I've had Thai massages before, and it feels like your limbs are gonna break off. But let me tell you, you feel lighter, you walk straighter. I'm like, that's actually good preparation for the rest of the race.
Absolutely.
I would have gone with that, even though I think it's 5 team max. Kind of knowing where you are in line with everything. If I felt like one of the top like 3 or 4 teams, I absolutely would have gone for the spa day. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would have gone for the spa day as well.
Have you had one?
No.
Oh, like you're like, how do you not know you're not gonna rip a limb off? It's just really- and they use their whole body, and it's oof, it hurts.
Well, I used to be a dancer and like I would like sit in the splits and stuff like that and like I would really put myself in painful situations and sit there for hours. Like I would literally do my homework and I'd put like my legs on like one side of the couch and the other side of the couch and I'd just sit and do my homework in the splits for hours. So
Me too.
I think that I think that I'd be okay with the pain,
Yeah.
but I would choose that one over memorizing something because like you just have to endure it and get through it,
Yes.
instead of having to worry about both people being able to pick up choreography.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like you can't really help the other person if one person gets it wrong, gets to do it again. So I think I would just take something that I didn't have to be judged.
Yeah. Endurance, I know that I can do. Whereas, your competence in performing a certain task, you don't know necessarily if you're just going to be terrible at it, or again, if your partner might be. So, yeah, it's just a bigger risk that other one, unless you do choreography normally, or
You're a professional sword
sports.
dancer.
Yeah, like it didn't seem it seemed as if that was the obvious choice, which is why I think most of them picked that.
Hmm. But you can't stop the treatment. So if you tell the treatment to stop, you have to start again from the beginning. And if there's other people waiting in line, you have to go to the back of the queue. And I believe each treatment is 30 I said 30 seconds, but I meant
30
30 seconds of sword play, but it's a 30-minute spa that they had to do, right? Treatment.
minutes. Yeah, yeah. I wish there was.
So
I almost wish there was only like 3 spots, because I would have loved to see more
more
teams
people try.
forced to, yeah, do the other one, and like maybe a lot of back and forth. And so yeah, 5 spots. I think we only saw one team have to wait essentially. So
Hmm. So Andrea and Milena knew that the spa was going to hurt, so they decided to go to sword instead. And so when they're practicing, they had these wooden sticks that they were practicing with that they seemed to catch on to the choreography there. But then when they actually picked up the swords were a lot heavier and it was a lot more difficult to maneuver. So what do you think about how there was not a consideration of weight with the practice sword? Like, couldn't they have a plastic sword that was equal in weight? or
I
something?
don't know. I don't think. I think swords are very heavy, so I don't think you could without it being dangerous, and they don't want you practicing with anything that's not like So yeah, I just think it was the nature of it that you have to deal with that. I mean, they're the only team who talked about the weight of it and that being difficult. So it's I would assume noticeably heavier. I'm sure I've picked up a sword or two in my life,
They're
not
pretty
in
heavy.
my head, but like yeah, just remembering that they're very heavy. But um, I don't know. I don't. I mean, plastic would have been light. Any like the wood was pretty light. Like, what are you gonna strap weights to it? So I just think it's the nature of what they were doing.
And I guess it's probably how they do train is with the wooden stick, and then you have to figure it out with the sword.
Yeah, yeah,
So while Todd and Ashley are getting their spa day massage, he does say, wait, 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 wait. And he was talking too much and has to go back to the line because that stopped his spa lady, from giving him the massage.
yes.
So what do you think about him saying, wait, 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 kind of as a joke a little bit?
I was like,
Um,
Todd, you're going to be humbled real quick. And I like that he was mad at himself and kept saying it like this is like he's really hard. He's like, I was just talking too much. I shouldn't have talked. Like, I'm also like, if I was what's her Ashley, I'd have been like, shut your mouth. You're not saying another word for the entire thing. Like 30 minutes for 30 minutes. But because I'm like, you could say something that slips up. And I mean, I like show wise that we saw that happen. But and I like for the couple that they learned from it. And I think I remember that it was like 13 minutes that they lost, 13 to 15. It was somewhere around there. So what it's not the end of the world. Yes, 2 minutes could be the end of the world sometimes, but for them it wasn't. And it wasn't, like an hour, or it wasn't like they took like 5 penalties, like certain teams on Amazing Race Canada. And yeah, I think he'll learn from his mistake, and he realized it and was hard on himself. I felt because of it, so I was like, "Good, you should be. Shut your mouth."
So Andrea and Melena could not get the feel for the sword, so they decided to switch. What did you think about that choice?
I'm never a fan of switching because I think it's going to eat up a lot of time. And then we did see another team almost switch when it was full and then decide not to for that very reason. And so I think it's very dangerous switching. However, if you think you are in the lead and you think that this is going to be significantly much more difficult and hold you up much longer than a switch would, learning like all that kind of stuff, then go for it. And I mean, I think they made the right move for them, but
I
I
think
was
because they were
very
in the front of the pack, like they were in the first, so they had an hour and a half kind of to play with, and so I think that that's why they decided to switch.
well when they did switch and got there, they were like, "Oh my gosh, they were on the first flight." The other team said, right? So you're kind of like, "Okay, let's put us with the second grouping, and we can just power through this." Yeah,
So yeah, there was only 5 spa spots available at once, and so when Elizabeth and Ileana get there, that's the moment that you're speaking of, where it was like they were deciding, should we switch and go to the other one or should we stay? And I was thinking in their case, stay, because no matter what, people have been there for, they didn't just get there. So
yeah,
there's going to be teams that are going to be staggeredly leaving, likely in less time that it would take you to get to the other detour, change into the outfit
yeah.
and
Learn
learn
it,
it and then do it
perform
multiple
it. Yeah,
times.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're so done for it if they switch right now because
And
that's
I
just
don't think they're going to be good at the sword.
yeah,
So they should
yeah,
just stay.
100%."
So at this point, also doing the sword is Alexandra and Sheridan, as well as Joe and Ian. Joe and Ian seem to pick up that sword choreography quite quickly and were able to power through it decently quick.
Well, like Alexander and Sheridan were there, significantly enough before them, and were just again very kind of just like not joking around, but just specifically Sheridan just wasn't like taking it as urgently as you would think that you would need to, and just were very relaxed about the whole situation. And so, yeah, Ian and Joe were able to surpass them, but because they had that drive, they had that determination, they had that
Mhm.
panic and fear that it could be them if they
And
didn't.
then the focus.
Yeah, came up
So
with a routine or a plan to like, okay, we're gonna do this in parts or whatever they said that they were doing. I was like, and then Sheridan was just swinging it around or something. So it's just-
yeah, they definitely took a more structured approach to learning it and executing it. So good on Joe and Ian. So first at the mat is Jocelyn and Victor. Yes, team parents. Second up is another team that I wasn't sure was going to be doing super well, which was Rob and Corey. Then the brothers, Greg and John. And like my surprise team as well. So like my two favorite teams are on my team. Jocelyn and Victor, and then Morgan and Lena. I'm just like, I want to see them like yelling at each other to do well, like, for the whole race. Because it's still in a loving way. Like it doesn't seem toxic. You know what I mean? It's just like, do
oh yeah,
it.
for sure, for sure.
Then Todd and Ashley are still able to get fifth place here. Steve and Anna Lee are in sixth. Joe and Joel. Who's Joel and Garrett? Oh, those two guys. Which did they? I don't even remember seeing them do the spa day, but I guess they did.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
in seventh. Eighth is Liam and Jeremy. And then ninth is Joe and Ian. So yeah, they passed their sword thing on their first attempt. And we see at this point though that Sheridan and Alexandra were on their seventh attempt, and then they finally completed on their ninth. And so they're trying to have a photo finish between Elizabeth and Ileana finishing the spa. And so they are kind of split screen between those two getting to the mat. 10th place is Andrea and Milena. So them switching detours really cost them probably about 5 placements. Robin and Chelsea, is that the name I wrote down?
Robin and Chelsea, yes.
Robin and Chelsea are 11th. And then our mother-daughter team are able to sneak into 12th place, making Sheridan and Alexandra the brother-sister team that had zero hustle or urgency to come in last and are eliminated from the race.
Yeah, we almost lost. The audience has Elizabeth and Ileana, so it's you almost lost your team. You almost lost your team. But yeah, I will say too that Rob and Corey, who because we didn't talk much about them, but they were a pleasant surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the funny thing was is like so Big Brother has a deaf contestant, and then they do a hearing challenge, and like Amazing Race has a deaf contestant, and they have an interpreter there on site to give the answer to Derek and Claire. It was just such a difference. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. So I just wanted to point that out. But I was like,
Yes.
oh, because I was wondering, I was like, how is he going to? Is he going to write it down for them, or like, what are they going to do? And I'm like, and they could have written it down, but I was like, you know what? It's so much more respectful, I think, to have that interpreter there. Like, you know what I
And
mean?
is used to maybe having someone to work with someone in that way.
And
So
so, yeah, and I was glad to see that.
the
But anyway,
consideration,
yeah,
absolutely. 100%. 100%. Well, that is pretty much it for the episode. I have to say, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I love my team. I don't mind losing Alexandra and Sheridan because, like, I don't like now that I see them run this race, I do not see that there's a chance that they will be able to win this race. They just didn't seem to, they enjoyed themselves. It was an experience, but I just didn't see them having that drive and determination and that fight to be able to eat that plate of bugs or do they just didn't have that hustle. And so
they
unfortunately I do lose a member of my team, but I'm happy that it's them because I do think that there's some other shining stars on my team.
and your draft also came in first as well. So you lost one, but your draft also came first place. Um, but yeah, I mean, they just like we said all episode, they just stumbled too much with their choices, and they didn't have that drive, specifically Sheridan, and so yeah, just get them out of the picture, and then it'll be a lot more cutthroat, I think. But I loved how this episode was structured. They did such a good job producing it, editing it. All the teams are great. And I love having a team that I absolutely hate, and we don't even have it, and I don't even feel like I'm missing that. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, we have teams that are, I'm okay about some of them, and then everyone else I really like, and I'm okay with that because there are some really good teams this season. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I am excited. Thanks, Nikki, for being here and enjoying the live. Thanks to you, Jonathan, for being here for the live, and everybody else here in the chat. I'm ready to be on this amazing race this season. The 90 minutes work for me. It's fun. I like the teams. I like my draft. Like, I think we're in for a good couple of months here together covering the show. So thanks, Jonathan, for being with me on this ride.
All right. Say
All
bye, Riley.
right. Bye, Ryland. And I will be in New York this week. So if you guys are planning on attending the Robinson Podcast live know-it-alls on Wednesday, I will be around, and I'll be there on Tuesday for Bryce and Gwen Present with their welcome party for Robinson Podcast. So if you're in New York area, come on by. I think there's still tickets available. It's supposed to be the biggest New York event since before the C word. So come and hang out with all of us. Other than that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let us know now who do you think has a better team. Just kidding. I did lose somebody though, so you know. Anyways, love you guys. Ciao.